Sunlight begins to fade now, and I feel like I'm losing time, but I don't know how I'm here. The sunlight has turned to gray, and I feel like I'm losing love again. I don't know how I'm here. I could feel your heartbeat. I could feel somewhere you're looking down. I could feel your heartbeat. I could feel somewhere you're looking down. 'Cause it's you I'm loving, and it's you that I wanna breathe. And it's you I'm loving, and it's you that I wanna need.
Hello everyone, welcome to Simracersworld TV for round 7 of the SRW GT Pro Series brought to you by Porsche Sport. We are in for a heck of a race here from Suzuka, the perhaps most well-known, I'd say, dare to say most well-known track in Japan, crossing all the way over the Pacific for an event that certainly is going to make for some interesting racing. This also marks the return of the SRW GT Pro Series after a little bit of a break because of the iRacing Week 14 situation forced us to do that. And it also marks the start of the second half of the season. We're in for some really interesting stuff. I am, of course, Hasse Rømer, and I'm joined by Jack Werrell in the booth tonight. And we are looking forward. Jack, how you feeling?
I'm in a very good mood. I've got to say, I hopped in the session tonight. I had a few issues, got them resolved, and I'm ready to get back to it. Believe it or not, we've been away from the Simracersworld GT series, whether it's Pro or Evo, for a month now. 4 weeks of not seeing any of this action. So even though we've got a slightly smaller grid this evening, I think everybody's just going to get in the mood and go for it, because they've been away from their usual competitors for a long while. So I think even with it being a small grid, it doesn't necessarily take away from the racing. I think tonight we're going to be in for a real treat. And the man we're looking at the moment, Bod Boland, in one of the BMWs, is rather competitive this evening. We know he's there or thereabouts, but he's doing quite well. And Hasse, tonight the field is awash with the German manufacturers. We've only got one Ford and one Ferrari.
Yeah, it's incredible, and we've had I think it's the lowest turnout for any of the races this season. I think several drivers has been hit by what I can only explain as pure bad luck, bad timing, and so on, with the faults on wheelbases and whatnot being amongst the reasons for some of our regulars not showing up for tonight's race. But it is gonna throw a little bit into it. I think also the new build on iRacing, there's a new aerodynamic model for these GT cars, and that's certainly gonna up the ante. And I'm interested to see just how these cars play out against one another. At the moment, quickest in qualifying is Johnny Verhoef from Manatee Racing in front of Ryan Parkins, Sam Bentham, Ewan Marshall, and then Sepp Heberer in the BMW. So very, very mixed. You should see, it looks like a German GTE field. This very much is, as you said, Jack. There's another Jack in the Ford, is Jack Ashton, of course, and then Ryan Walker in his Ferrari for Nomad Sim Racing. And just touching upon it, we're 2.5 minutes away from the end of qualifying. So let's just see if anyone's actually able to put in any hot laps here at the end of the session to grab pole position. And by the way, have a look at the track conditions for tonight here, as I'm afraid that Bart Boland, the Manxman, does indeed take a spinner. Here is Sam Bentham, and he is driving for the Ronin Simsport Academy. And as you can see, cool conditions this early morning in Japan. Just 19 degrees, which is as low as air temps will go in iRacing. And a track temp of 20 degrees, meaning for a fast track that isn't gonna be as hard as on the rubber as you sometimes see, of course. If you encounter adverse conditions here at Suzuka, it is a track that absolutely obliterates tires with its high amount of high-speed, long, sweeping bends. Just like, well, I think this is the exit of Spoon Curve. It is on the back straight here. Still following Sam Bentham as Martin van Røvik is looking to improve upon his current 9th place. His first 2 sectors were up. Let's see across the line for the Dutchman. It's not going to be an improvement as far as I can see. A 154.9. And I think actually Sam Bentham isn't really out for it this lap. But Boland, though, from Iraqi Racing here, with a minute left of the session, as he is exiting that Spoon 1 and 2, it's at such a difficult place to get around and get that proper exit. And down towards 130R, which is also one of the most famous corners in all of motorsports. And if you pull off an overtake here, shows you have both skills and guts aplenty. And coming down towards the Casio Triangle as it was once named, if I can just coin that phrase correctly. Although I'm actually not sure, Jack, if that's still the name of the final chicane.
You're barking up the wrong tree there, mate. I don't have a clue. There are only a couple of corner names that I know around here. All the famous ones, obviously 130R, Degner 1 and 2, the Spoon Curve, and then obviously the S's that we're seeing Bod Boland go into now. But I think just looking on the left-hand side of your screen, ladies and gentlemen, the Porsches last season, or at the start in the first half of the season. You can see that they've improved upon where they initially were. And Ryan Parkins for Strasser Porsche Sport, at the moment, the highest rate, or the highest up the order for Porsche, and the highest up the order in his class as well. You can see P2 provisionally for the moment, unless somebody can knock him off his perch at the moment. But the highest placed gold driver. Here comes Matthias Temme towards the line. Does he improve upon his time? No, I don't think he... Yes, he does, definitely. By a long chalk, 1 minute 54.65 puts him into provisional P9 overall in the 333 Porsche. And I think that's just going to be what we're going to have to look for throughout the entire evening, just seeing where Porsche can go. That's quite an odd one for Ryan Walker. Where's that? That looks like the exit of Spoon Curve, or going into the second apex.
Yeah, indeed it was, and he was on a very good lap. He was up on his personal best for most of the lap, basically, so a touch of bad luck there for Ryan Walker, and it seems like it is going to be 14th position for him. And I think Jack Ashton, Joop de Ligt, Paul Gosling and John Barnes as well is taking their qualifying bans tonight to reduce their overall number of incident points for the series, as we're still following this final lap by Jordan McClone. Although I think the timing board here says 11 minutes and 24 seconds. So I don't think it's going to be a too competitive lap, at least if we're going to trust the timing here, which usually we can. The good old Van Martin, I'm sorry about that. I was trying to fix it. Even the Wizard Chaz, the Wizard of Chaz, who we have some big news about, but I'm going to wait with that for a little bit. Even he has a pain in the peach, so to say, of getting the timing tower and info tower there to show the entirety of the names. Then anyway, Jordan McClone comes into the pits, and that's going to mark the end of the qualifying session. And with that, I'm gonna go right to the results. and to Jack Werrell as soon as it appears on screen. Won't be long for the readout.
Yeah, we should get them up in a short moment. There, that's the qualifying results for the teams. That's not what we wanted. That is different qualifying results to what I was expecting, but it works nonetheless.
Let's try to get the proper. I want to get the.
There we go.
Grid.
Takes pole position from Manatee Racing. So Manatee looking to make a mark this evening with the absence of G Drive with a 1 minute 53.248. Ryan Parkins, the highest placed Porsche highest placed Gold driver, just 3/10 behind. Sam Bentham and Ewan Marshall make up row 2. Sebastian Herbert has Bod Boland for company on row 3. Neil Cooper and Jeremy Hessel 7th and 8th. Matthias Temmet and Martin van der Ewyk round out your top 10. Carl Sharkey in 11th with Jordan McClone alongside. Down the next couple, and look, we don't really go that far before we get to the bottom of the grid. Quite a low turnout this evening, but we should end up with some good action nonetheless. John Tusting starting in 13th, Ryan Walker in 14th, Job Delict 15th, Jack Ashton in 16th, Paul Gosling 17th, and John Barnes rounds out your grid for Quantum Racing. And speaking of Quantum Racing, Hasse, I think we need to have a look at their livery.
We certainly do, because they have been wanting to show something special for tonight. Their teammate Dave Fuller, now the father of a little baby girl, so great congratulations to Dave from us as well, and from his teammates who are running a special pink livery on their BMWs tonight. That is absolutely great to see, and we're gonna be, and actually, you know what, I think it looks rather good. It's not gonna, I'm gonna say the Quantum Racing cars with the black and yellow regular liveries are also good looking indeed. And actually, I think we just need another short thing that I think we might be able to squeeze it in here. The championship standings. And it is not these standings, but for some reason, these standings with Martin van Loosnoot, who's not here, Jennifer Hove, 445 points as well. They are tied at the midway point here. Joop de Ligt, 385, Mario Yuri 4th, Bram van Putten, Robin de Ville, Sam Bentham, Pim Bauer, Ferris Stanley, and Jack Ashton making up the top 10 in the standing. As they get warming up the tires, the engines, the brakes, let us fade the music and get into race mode. It's a short run to the start-finish line here at Suzuka, and that's very much worth noting, because it won't be long before we will have the green flag for this 7th round of racing from the Simracersworld GT Pro Series. 1.5 hours of racing coming up here from Suzuka, featuring a field that makes good drivers look average. And look at the start here from Johnny Verhoef. He gets the really good run on the following drivers. That's Bentham, that's Ryan Parkins, Ewan Marshall, Seb Heber, Bud Boland, Jeremy Hessels, and Neil Cooper as they're streaming down towards one. And look at that, Seb Heber I think is getting past. And that was the Manxman, Bud Boland up into 5th place in the BMW. All clean start, I think, throughout the field, but that many cars in this case, so they should be able to. And a couple of pit starters that are coming out on the track now. It'll be interesting to see just how they're able to pick up the pace as the field heads up through the S's and up towards Dunlop for the first time. Look at that, Sam Bentham getting a little wide there, and Ryan Parkins, who I think actually lost a spot to the BMW there. He's now right on the tail, coming down towards the 2 Deckners. Here's the first, and then the second, a tight right-hander indeed, with you to try to line that overtaking opportunity up, coming up towards the hairpin. Here is Bud Boland, as I mentioned before, up into 5th place. And Paul Gosling there, and the power of pink. He's up 3 positions as well, and 14th at the moment. And look at that, Jennifer Hove breaking away already at the head of affairs. And not the first time we've seen Manatee being strong, but there's no G-Drive cars, and that's something that I think is gonna hurt the championship standings, or the championship chances, so to say, as well, of the G-Drive drivers as a whole. By the way, something I haven't gotten around to is welcoming everyone watching along on our YouTube channel, of course, and also on Twitch and on our Facebook page. A warm welcome, everyone, from me and Jack here in the booth. I hope you're getting ready and settled in for a good night of racing here. Ewan Marshall still defending, and I think someone has had a problem, and it's Neil Cooper, John Barnes as well, and Martin van Rømer has been caught up in it. And let's have a look here, Jack. tell us what exactly happened here.
So this is on the run up to 130R, gets through there cleanly, or does he? He runs a little bit wide. Will he get the moment collected up? We've got cars off the road. That's a Fury Simsport Porsche, and that was Neil Cooper with a massive moment, holds the brakes as long as he can to get out of the way. I think Martin van der Eeuwik got caught up in that as well, because he's returned to the pits. Oh, he gets collected by the other Fury Simsport machine, turned around backwards, and I think he actually returned to the pit lane straight away. It looks like the car might have sustained some terminal damage from that, but Neil Cooper now trying to recover from that incident in P15. The two pit lane starters that you mentioned was Job de Ligt and Jack Ashton, obviously our season 6 champion, so it'll be interesting to see where he can get up to during the race. But Jordan McClone in the other Simpact machine chasing down Carl Sharkey, and if you look at the painted strips on the left hand side of your screen, top two are both platinum drivers, then we get an absolute sea of gold drivers, then we get to Jordan McClone, another platinum driver, then 5 more gold drivers, and then we get back to our 2 pit starters, which are both platinum drivers trying to gain back some of those incident points. They will get 20 incident points redeemed from that pit lane start, but quite a manic start for such a small field. But only 3 minutes 20 into a 1 hour 30 race is one of the Quantum Racing machines in front. That's John Barnes running slightly wide, and those BMWs, as settled as they look at the start of the season, they look like they're running on rails at the moment.
Very much so, and even though we've heard about a number of car changes here at the midway point of the season, I'm not exactly sure it's done too much bad for the BMW. Indeed, here's we are on board with Ryan Walker, who certainly pushes the limits there through 130R into the Casio triangle. He comes, dives in late, doesn't really use all of the track there. Might just want to make himself and his presence known to the Quantum trio up ahead, but a little bit surprised to see him not taking full advantage of the track potential there. Up ahead of the Quantum cars is indeed Jordan McClone and the Porsche Sport Porsche of Carl Sharkey, and Matthias Temme, Jeremy Hessel, Sepp Heber, Bud Boland, and it's Ewan Marshall in 4th, then Ryan Perkins, it's Sam Benton and Johnny Verhoef in the lead of affairs still. But a couple of good close battles here, as 4th, 5th and 6th it's not separated by a lot of time here, and that's Jeremy Hessel's lurking in the background.
So it looks like Martin van der Eeuwik might be retiring from the race. Whether he decides to continue on or not, we've got Jack Ashton in the pit lane. I've got to say his car looks fairly factory new. Goes up onto the jacks, so taking a fresh set of tyres. Not 100% sure what happened there. I didn't see him go off the road or anything of the like. We've had an incident for Matthias Temme. You can see he's dropping down the order from the top 10 now into P11. It might have only been a smaller incident, but we'll have to have a look back to see what happened to Matthias. So here we go on the run up to the hairpin. He dives to the inside as John Tusting having a little look, and there is Matthias Temme, and gets a bit of a nudge there, doesn't he? But looks like he carries on without too many issues.
Yeah, just a slight spin for the Dutchman there in the hairpin, something we've seen so many drivers do. It could be a good point there from Cami in chat that Jack Ashton might have forgotten his fueling there, and that would have certainly put him a long way back. So he's exiting the pits now. Oh, and John Tusting has had another problem, and John Barnes might have been involved in it. Here goes Tusting, and he just about holds the brakes nicely there, but oh, look at his teammates there on the inside. That almost went completely wrong, and there was another incident of Barnes going off the track. Look at that! With the two BMWs, they're squeezing in on actually less space than there actually was on track there in that situation. John Tusting there, really suffering indeed. And then the number 1 car, I'm a little bit surprised to see that, because, well, I know here Jack Ashton, who I am afraid has also called it a day for tonight. Or a night, if you will. Or it might just be because we're on the... Oh, no. It does seem like it throws us straight to Scenic Cam, and that's never a good sign. So Johnny Verhoef, Sam Bentham, Ryan Parkins, Ewan Marshall, and still Bud Boland is 5th. Your current top 5 running here after 7 minutes of racing. It started off in a very clean fashion, and then all of a sudden the incident has rolled in. And indeed, Steven, it has been a little too eventful, I think, for some of the drivers at least, over this opening couple of laps. Look at this, Jeremy Hessels now getting close to the rear end of Seb Hebera. And the train of 3 BMWs chasing down the Porsche of Ewan Marshall. And Cammy, I think Occam's Racer would favor your theory there, because it's not really like we have evidence of anything happening to Jack Ashton. He might be here to tell us at some point, so if anyone knows what actually happened to Jack, let us know here in the booth. Certainly bad luck here. Neil Cooper is on the rear end of Ryan Walker, and at the same time, oh, look at this, that's John Barnes going wide in the Casio Triangle. And at the same time, I think Neil Cooper has gone past on Ryan Walker, who also had seemed to find the need and the necessity to cut the chicane, outbraking himself. And we're back to live pictures, because Seb Hebera is still under attack here from Jeremy Hessels. And this is Dynamics Racing on the tail of the Simracersworld esports team driver. A highbrow commentary team mentioning Occam's Razor. Yeah, indeed. Getting philosophical in here tonight. Oh, look at this. Oh, no. John Barnes being collected. And was that?
I think that was Neil Cooper.
That was indeed, I think, Neil Cooper. Yet no, that was not this incident. But this is the one I believe we're looking for here. Oh, that's a touch into, I think that's a Dunlop. You know what, that BMW is well kept there from John Barnes. And I'm not sure the car was really going to like that anytime ever here. Ewan Marshall having to defend now from Bud Boland. But you know what, Jack? I feel like the Porsches are certainly looking a lot better, at least on one lap qualifying pace. Although we are seeing a strong run from the BMWs of Boland, Hebera and Hessels. They both gained, I'm sorry, but they both gained plenty of positions here as the Porsches has lost a little bit.
Yeah, I've got to say, I do think that the Porsches are quicker during the qualifying session. We've had an incident for Jordan McClone. Here's the incident with Job de Ligt. Maybe an overtake here around the outside at 130R on the run-up. No, he gets the position made before he even gets to 130R. Does anything happen on the exit? No. Oh, Jordan McClone.
Speaking of the exit at 130R, yeah. You know what, he does incredibly well to actually keep that Porsche out of the wall. And of course, having to stay quiet for some time, avoiding traffic. He finds himself at the back of the pack. And I am afraid I've seen a little bit of a bump there at the rear end of the car, perhaps. Would that be? Look at that at the left-hand side. It's certainly taken a hit. Let's hope that Porsche 911 isn't too badly harmed from that here. Ewan Marshall still defending well. Here is Hessels, then Sharkey, Matthias Temme, and Paul Gosling. Well, Cammy, I'm afraid that Jack Ashton's out. It doesn't really show us anything, at least. Because Martin van Rooijbeek's in the pits. And, well, he should be out the pits, but we aren't seeing anything. So my take is that, oh, we've had another problem here for John Barnes. Seems to be suffering. And that's a couple of cars who are getting past him here. Let's see, Job de Ligt, who's absolutely flying up through the field. Oh, it's just a big old lug up there in the hairpin. And Ryan Walker is sort of out the way as well there. But he comes back in the Ferrari. Look at this, actually, a really good battle. Is he able to just squeeze in ahead? Down towards Spoon 1 and 2, certainly yes. And that's another position gain for Job de Ligt, who's now up into 12th. And mind you, he started from the pits. We've been racing for just about 12 minutes. And that is certainly not bad running from him at all here, as Seb Hebera finds himself under another attack from Jeremy Hessels. And Hessels is certainly on his tail here. He's been so for quite some time now. doesn't seem too impatient to me. Of course, these S's are not the place for impatience. And that is rarely rewarded, I want to say, up through the S's with anything else but broken hearts and bills to pay for the mechanics.
Got to say though, it does look like quite a strong performance from the Porsches this evening. We've had a change for P2. Ryan Parkins is now back up to where he started. He's managed to get past Sam Bentham. Here is the overtake. So Sam Bentham's quite a way up the road. Did he make a mistake? Maybe over-rotate the car into... Yes, he did over-rotate the car into the final chicane, and an easy overtake for Ryan. So all he's got to do now is try and build that gap. This is John Tusting trying to negotiate Ryan Walker's Ferrari, but no, nothing comes to fruition there. But Ryan Walker, he's got to be feeling the pressure behind the wheel of that Nomad sim racing machine. He's got two bright pink and black Quantum Racing BMW's hot on his heels under his rear wing. I think I heard a car sideways there. I did indeed. That's Paul Gosling speaking of the Quantum Racing BMWs. So now Ryan Walker has got three Quantum Racing BMWs behind him. Oh, when curb swapped to AstroTurf, it caught him out, over-rotated the car, but nothing really came of that. No damage. And now look at this, Ryan parking with a Ryan Walker with John Tusting up the inside. It looks like he hit the grass there, maybe on the brakes, and into the wall hard. That's a massive hit. Even though it is into a softer wall, that will have put some major damage on the car. So now on the run-up to 130R, watch the white line. He hits the grass on the brakes. The car throws itself over to the left-hand side. He does what he can to try and avoid John Tusting's BMW. So by all means, he did a good job to minimize the damage, but then he got onto the gravel, hit the brakes, and it's a one-way train there straight into the wall, threw it sideways in to try and minimize any front or rear-end damage. But Ryan Walker, he is out of the race. It looks like he's left the session. So that's 3 retirements of the grid of 18. So now only 15 cars running. But I'm still surprised that we're getting some racing of the highest quality. You really wouldn't know that there's only 15 cars on the grid, because every time you look at a new car, there's a new battle.
Yeah, very tightly matched at the moment, these cars. And oh, look at the dive there from Jeremy Hasse into the hairpin. Are they going to make contact? No, Sepp Ever the gentleman, knows that he's got nothing really to do about that, but he's not gonna be too happy about that, is he, Jack? Let's have another look here.
Nice one, the run up to the hairpin, Jeremy Hessel's. It looks like he's not going to go for the move, and then the opportunity presents itself. He might not even risk getting it slowed down, throws it towards the apex. Seb leaves the door open, and then Jeremy Hessel starts running wide just as he clips the apex. Very, very wide indeed. And it's great to see that Seb still gave him racing room, over-rotated the car a little bit on the exit, which ruined his run on the way out and the undercut opportunity. But Jeremy Hessels has now got up into 6th position. This is Caravan Carl Sharkey, who for the first time isn't a caravan. He's not stuck to the back of another car, and he's got lots and lots of breathing room. 8.5 seconds in front and 5 seconds behind. So the Strasser Porsche Sport driver in a world of his own, in clean air, and this is where he's got to focus on getting those quick, clean and consistent laps in, and still keep in the back of his mind that he does have a pit stop to make. So this is where he can start planning his strategy back a little bit further there when the run-up was 130R. This is Jordan McLean throwing it in towards the apex, trying to get John Tusting. Let's see what he can do on the brakes. Riding on board now, still quite a way back. Coming out of the final couple of corners, through the chicane, over the curbs. John Tusting gets a great run out of there. Look at that gap, just extending and extending. Jordan McLean now, though, with Neil Cooper tucked underneath his rear wing with the draft assistance as well. So I think Neil Cooper might be looking to get the overtake done, but when you look at it on the timing screen, you've got a couple of cars up the road that are within a second of each other, and then a couple of cars up the road from the battle we're looking at the moment within a second of each other. So lots and lots of cars, albeit a small grid, still battling nose to tail.
Indeed, and as you just mentioned before, Jack, it is nice to see that we still get racing on a reduced grid, if you will, because we have been seeing some big grids, by the way, early this season. So that's also, I think, where the sort of surprise, for us at least in the booth, comes in, that we haven't really seen this before. So with all due respect, the drivers are putting on a really good show indeed here. Bart Boland, 0.8 of a second behind Ewan Marshall there. It's been this way for quite some time now. They're all trying to play catch up to, well, let's not even Sam Bentham, not too far ahead as well. And then Ryan Parkins with a good gap further down the order. That battle at the bottom of affairs at the moment is still where it's hottest, I think. The two Porsches of Jordan McClone and Neil Cooper. And then John Tusting around a second ahead for Quantum Racing. Oh, look at this now, Ewan Marshall having to be ever more watchful in his mirrors. Sam Bentham, of course, knows that the BMW should still be very strong on straight line speed. But you'd expect it to be difficult for the BMW to really get to line it up on the Porsches up through these fast sweepers, where traditionally the Porsches have indeed been very strong. An update on the weather situation, indeed 21 degrees track temp, as also mentioned in chat. Air temp not really rising, it is, by the way, sim time just 7:15 in the morning. So early days in Japan, and that actually might be the current time in Japan. I have absolutely no clue, to be honest. I remember Murray Walker once saying something about, or a different time if you're in a different time zone wherever in the world you are, or something like that, which was absolutely hilarious. It was one of many amusing moments from the man, the legend, dare I say, the living legend, almost the myth that is Murray Walker.
So I've got to say,
sorry.
if we were racing at the actual time in Suzuka, it'd be rather dark because it's 4:20 in the morning, which the drivers would love because the track temp would be even cooler. But sadly, it isn't the actual time in sim at the moment. But still, look at this. This is Matthias Temme getting a massive hit from Job de Ligt, the Manatee Racing driver, threw it into Spoon Curve when the opportunity wasn't really there, and Matthias Temme obviously carrying damage now, over-rotates the car coming out of 130R. But let's have another look back, Hasse. This is the incident just after Matthias Temme going for a little spin, gets the moment collected up. But looking at the original incident, we'll have to see whether we can grab it, Hasse. But
I can't even, I
don't
even
say,
have it.
I think that was rather optimistic from Job de Ligt.
Yeah, I did come from quite a long way back with that send, really not expecting Matthias Temme to defend his position. The Dutchman in front had very different ideas of that. And yeah, that was not the luckiest of incidents. A rather small punt, but with big effects in the end. And it didn't do any good for Matthias Temme in that situation, who's now behind John Barnes. Half a second here. And then Ewan Marshall, still followed by the man from the Isle of Man, the Manxman that is Bud Boland. But there's now Sepp Hebera beginning to lose touch here. He's been good at actually keeping up with Jeremy Hessels, who did a big old send here in the hairpin out of just a few laps ago indeed. But he's beginning to lose ever so slightly here. Matthias Temme is now very close to John Barnes ahead. Barnes up into the top 10. But you have to wonder how much damage that Porsche 911 has taken to its rear splitter. It doesn't take a lot for these cars to begin picking up damage that sort of affects the drag of the car most of all. And just that straight line performance. Oh, and we've had an overtake. I think Jordan McClone here. Let's have a look. Jack, tell us what you see.
So Jordan McClone on the run up to the hairpin. Let's see what happens. Snags an inside brake, goes up the inside of one of the Quantum Racing machines. Do either of them overlap? It doesn't look like it at the moment, but then going through the long right-hander on the run up to Spoon Curve, has a little bit of a moment, gets it collected up. The Quantum Racing machine dives into the draft in the background. I think, there you go, another Fury Simsport machine gets by. That's Neil Cooper getting past Paul Gosling. Now on the run up to the 130R, Matthias Temme on the tail of that man there, John Barnes, in the special livery, celebrating David Fuller's newborn. So a massive congratulations to you, Dave, and your wife Sam, from myself, Hasse, and obviously everybody else here at Simracersworld, and your brilliant teammates for applying that new livery for the car. But we've still got battles going on in the background, Hasse.
Indeed we have. This is Tusting, McClone, Cooper, and indeed Paul Gosling at the end of it. A 4-car battle. And I think Neil Cooper has had some kind of problem. Look, he's lost his bonnet. Or whatever you want to call that on a Porsche 911. Because it doesn't really have the engine. It's not the engine bay, but I guess it's still the bonnet of a car. But that's not gonna help his aerodynamic performance at all, I'm afraid, here. Neil Cooper, who hasn't had the easiest of nights tonight. And thinking that they should be able to go in for a fast repair, if I'm very much mistaken. Or if I'm not very much mistaken, which I usually am. I need to go for a higher pitch to do my Murray imitation. I remember from Formula 1 97 on the first iteration of the PlayStation, he had some brilliant commentary in that game. And I remember him saying, normally, driving a racing car is very much a skill from the head, not from the heart. But out on the track today, we've seen some really passionate performances. So many gems. Look at that! Look at that! Incredible! We got a lot of that. We got plenty of chances for Murray imitations come the 24 hours of Solder, the bell car. 24 hours of Solder that's due for Halloween's Day. Look at that! Trying to send it back, Jordan McClone, after being passed on the outside. Like, he's really not giving any space there. Oh, they almost make contact. Just about making it through. And John Tosting showing some big old racecraft there. Let's have another look, Jack, at the actual overtake itself. You just call it up on screen. There it is. So John Tosting. Oh, that's an old overtake. So Jordan McClone. Or was it McClone that passed him? No. No, no, and no. No. Somehow not. It looked like an overtake. I'm actually not quite sure it was, but it looked like they went too wide at least. And a big old battle here for that 12th position here at the moment. And further ahead now, it's settling down. No one really getting that close to one another there. Ewan Marshall now with a little bit of a buffer down to Bart Boland and behind. Jeremy Hessels and Sepp Hepper are very much the same here as John Tosting has had some kind of incident. Oh, and Jordan McClone was very close to the rear end of that BMW here. It's coming into the Decklers. Oh, he just misses the apex through the first Deckler. That's going to cost him big time here on the exit. Might he be challenged there coming down to the hairpin? Actually, I think the grunt of the BMW just enough to keep him in front here. But it's still very, very close.
Yeah, so John Tosting still leading that train. Quantum Racing car very, very wide in the background. That was Paul Gosling. Didn't look like he went off much, but he did lose a little bit of time onto one of the most important parts of the circuit on the run up to 130R, where every bit of advantage you can gain coming out of Spoon Curve will really make all the difference. Look at the drivers there using all the track and a little bit more. I think that was John Tosting kicking up some of the grass. Look at this, Jordan McClone round the outside, very late on the brake into the chicane. If he can pull that move up, that would be brilliant. What a move! The 727 Simpac machine round the outside, going into the final chicane. That's Neil Cooper now up the inside of John Tosting as well. So Quantum Racing only going backwards, but John Tosting is now back in front of Neil Cooper on the run up to turn one. He does have the draft assistance of the Simpac Porsche ahead, but Neil Cooper does have the inside. Let's see what these two can sort out. There you go, Neil Cooper position made, and Quantum Racing now down into P14 and 15 respectively with John Tosting and Paul Gosling. Let's have another look back at this overtake.
Yeah, Jordan McClone here coming into the Casio Triangle, sends it very late on the brakes on the outside. A very gutsy move from McClone. Look at the rear wheel lifting there. He's throwing that car in with every bit of grip he can muster. Somehow he finds enough to actually get the car turned around and lined up enough to get the left hand part of the triangle sorted as well. And I think Tosting there, I guess. Oh, the Porsche is all of a sudden on the inside, and I think that's really to the aid of Jordan McClone in that situation, who's now up into 12th place and pushing away from the cars behind here. Neil Cooper now blocking up John Tosting and teammate Paul Gosling here in, as you mentioned, 15th place indeed. So a huge move of the day so far there from the Simpack driver. Here is Ewan Marshall, still doing a very, very good job of keeping Bud Boland at bay. Ryan Parkins, by the way, for Strasse Porsche Sport, we should indeed mention, running second, running very comfortably at the moment here. And I sort of feel like at least that we're seeing the true pace of Ryan Parkins here. And I'm getting vibes of the Porsche 911 all of a sudden with the new build, with the aerodynamic rebuild of the GTE cars and a new tire model as well that might have done it an awful amount of good there. And it's certainly looking stronger, it's certainly looking better. Ryan Parkins just 8.2 seconds off of Jennifer Hove with around 4.5 seconds down to Sam Bentham. Then it's Ewan Marshall, Bud Boland and Jeremy Hessel still also in contention there in 6th place. And the high climbers of this race in terms of race positions, well, John Barnes, well, he started in 18th place. He's up into 10th, so he's had a good day at the office so far. Joop de Ligt started from the pit as well. He's up into 9th. And Carl Sharkey's certainly done a good job for himself as well. So it's all been about keeping it clean and fair. And while we've seen some good racing, we've also seen some, let's call it, impatient decisions made by some of the drivers to just try and make those sense at a track where it is indeed, I was just about to say impossible to overtake. It most certainly is not impossible to overtake. We've seen many examples of that already here tonight, but it's not one of the easiest tracks in the world to get past that car in front. Here, Joop de Ligt lining it up very well for a launch on Carl Sharkey, and already here at the beginning of the straight, he's so close that he could basically reach his arm out the window and touch the rear end of the Porsche here. He's getting a very good pull down to turn 1, and I don't think, and for once I'm right, but Carl Sharkey wasn't going to put up too much of a fight for that position. Jack, we are just about half an hour into this race, and Neil Cooper is now entering the pit lane.
He is indeed, so maybe this is a very early strategy play from himself. We will be entering the pit window very, very shortly, but still quite out there with his strategy. But like you say, Ryan Parkins right the way up in P2, where he qualified to be fair, but the Porsche Club GB Sim Racing Championship champion of Season 1 in the number 225 Strasse Porsche Sport machine right the way up in P2. Still got Stan Bantam there in P3, so the podium is very much in the way it started. Ewan Marshall also remaining in the position he started. Bud Boland up a position, Jeremy Hessel's up 2, Seb Herbert sadly down 2. Joop de Ligt, we've got to remember, he started from the pit lane right the way up in 7th position, but he might be carrying a little bit of damage after the incident with himself and Matthias Temme. And John Barnes for Quantum Racing putting in a beautiful show in that beautiful livery, up 8 positions, started in 18th, right the way towards the tail end of the grid, right the way up into P10 now. And I'm also looking at the classes as well. Oh, this is an incident for Matthias Temme, I believe, going into Degner 2. It looks like he hit the grass and couldn't get it slowed down in time. Goes for a bit of an off-track moment, but gets it all collected up and continues on. And I'm looking at the classes on the left-hand side of your screen. Joop de Ligt, although he's right the way down in P8, he's still P3 in class, so he would still make the podium if he finished where he was now.
That's quite impressive, to be honest, but goes to show that a lot of the gold drivers really looking good tonight. It was really nice to see. By the way, Steven, I'd say I'm ever the diplomat when it comes to it. I don't want to be the one to call people out for doing anything stupid, and I think most of us, at least, enjoying sim racing ourselves from time to time, has been on the giving end of a mistake and on the receiving end as well, by the way, but I think we've all been in that situation of just getting a little too ambitious and trying to pull something off that just didn't work. So with all due respect, I think I'm just trying to not get too judgmental. And I think it can happen to commentators that we at times can sound like we know it all and we can do it all and he should just have done this and that. And I think that's one to avoid as much as you can at least. Anyways, here Bud Boland now getting closer to you and Marshall. Let's get back to the racing and also, well, mentioning the battles that we've been having for a while here. Jeremy Hessels. Oh, he got past. Oh, Jeremy Hessels. I'm sorry, but I must have missed something here because Jeremy Hessels at the exit of Dunlop, he takes a spinner, and that is a big old spinner indeed. He points very much the wrong way, gets the car turned around nicely, and that's going to cost a bit of tire wear. The temperatures are going to skyrocket for a bit there, and Jopdelik gets past as well. Haber is back past, and it's been a bit of a gift for the SRW TV car. Well, thanks, Steven. I've been doing it for a few years now, but mostly on Gran Turismo Sport on the PlayStation 4, where, dare I say, it's a little more simple. Less cars, less action, and a lot less things to take care of than when having to fiddle with the many wands of wizardry that the SDK broadcast software does indeed put at our disposal, but it's also about knowing what you can actually do with the program. Once you start getting into it, it is absolutely magical indeed. Oh, a bit of blinking here for Jeremy Hessels. Hope that's not going to be a recurring issue. And if so, I'd kind of rather have it for us than for the other drivers here now. Jeremy Hessels, you know what? He has had a loss of another position here. Or was that just Carl Sharkey just sneaking through? Oh, that very much was, as he was indeed rejoining. So, one that I missed before. I guess that happens as well. Hessels with a big old look there. And a full-on approach here to the spoon curves. He's trying to get the run on Carl Sharkey. Don't get too excited there now, mate. Pit stop round coming up. And as I say that, the top four is all in, as we see here. Jennifer Hoff, Ryan Parkin, Sam Bentham, Ewan Marshall in the top five. It is now, actually, because Bart Boland, Haber is in as well. I think the entire field coming in at the 35-minute mark, or almost at the 35-minute mark. And both Jonas Husting and Matthias Temme has had a little bit of an off track. There's Temme. Oh, do they make contact? They do indeed, and that was much more than I thought before. It looked like a small off-track excursion for both of them. That was a major collision. That might have done major damage to both cars there, and it's indeed taking them a long time. Look at John Tusting just trying to get it rotated here. Oh, that's poor luck. And back to the pit stop exit here as Ewan Marshall comes out right in front of Bud Boland. And that is going to be important as well, because as we've seen here for the opening 35 minutes, when the cars are close on pace, overtaking is not easy at all. And strategy, pit stop times, and execution of entrance and exit could indeed be absolutely crucial for tonight here. Oh, look at that Porsche on the inside there in Jordan McClone. That's Neil Cooper ahead. And his car is not looking too good. It looked very out of shape. Or he could just be late on the brakes. But I'm afraid his Porsche is not in a good way. Look at how it rides down the straight here. It doesn't really look like it's supposed to look. Oh, and Jordan McClone's been shown the outside. And no way around here. Neil Cooper defending well. He's going to try for the cutback. But usually what you find is that there really isn't space until you reach the SS. Still a good battle here going on. Ewan Marshall is trying to break away yet again from Bud Boland, who closed that gap over the pit stop round. And Jeremy Hessels Who lost that position to Carl Sharkey before, still behind. And a little bit of a disappointment there for Jeremy Hessels, who were doing very, very nicely indeed. And also a contender, I think, Jack, for overtake of the day with his big send in the hairpin. What do you think there?
Yeah, 100%. That was a very committed overtake. Very, very brave stuff from himself. He saw the gap. I personally didn't think the move was on, but he's got more confidence than I do. Clearly later on the brakes, got the car turned in, got it slowed down, more importantly, and kept it clean. A brilliant job and a great overtake. This is now Neil Cooper with, I think that's Jordan McClone behind him. Does he go for a spin? The number 3 Fury Sim Sport car hits the grass with his outside rear wheel and then goes for a bit of a gravelly moment. Thankfully kept it out the wall, but he has lost a couple of positions from that, I think. Obviously to Jordan McClone and Paul Gosling is John Barnes. We've had a change of position up the order though. That's Jeremy Hessels and Carl Sharkey that have swapped position. We'll have to have a look to see how that change of position came about. I thought Carl was in a world of his own, but on the run up to turn 1, you can see Jeremy Hessels tucked underneath the rear wing, tucked in the draft, throws it up the inside, grabs the apex, still gets it slowed down for the second corner, and Carl Sharkey can't really do much about that to defend it. But back to Neil Cooper now, who I think has got in a world of his own as well, and Carl Sharkey is living up to his name here. Caravan Carl stuck onto the tail end of the Dynamics Racing BMW.
I think Carl Sharkey might have made a small mistake before, but I remember it as he had plenty of clean air as well, as you said, in a world of his own. But all of a sudden, Jeremy Hessel, oh, of course not, because Hessels had that spin before. Sharkey snuck by there at the inside, and now Hessels getting back at the end of the start-finish straight. Let's see here further up the order. Ewan Marshall still 6/10 in front of Bud Boland, who isn't really close enough to strike. Here's Carl Sharkey now a second down on Hessels, who, oh, I think he got a bad run there. Now up towards 130R, but certainly not within striking range. The Porsche behind. Oh, and more blinking for Hessels there. Oh, and John Barnes. John Barnes has had an issue. Let's see exactly what happened to the Quantum car here as he takes another spinner. It's certainly not the first time we've seen it, Jack. That middle part of Spoon, it's so easy to just dip a wall onto that, dip a tire onto that AstroTurf indeed. And once you do so, the change in grip so dramatic, the car just breaks away instantly, and it doesn't really take a lot for it to happen.
Now we know these cars can be unstable, but quite a repetitive incident. I think I've seen that a hell of a lot in the official races. But back up to Ewan Marshall now in P4, but with Bod Boland, former Raki Racing, just behind. And on the run up to Spoon Curve, I don't think he will have enough time here. But if he can nail both the apexes at Spoon and remain in the draft range, on the run up to 130R, he will close up. Coming out of 130R, he will close up. And if he's confident on the brakes going into the final chicane, he might gain more time, but he runs a little bit wide going into the second apex. Carries the momentum now. I think this position will possibly change on the start-finish straight, Hasse, if Bod Boland puts his mind to it and nails the final couple of corners.
Yeah, but I think he actually lost a bit of time coming through the second part of Spoon. There's such a difficult corner indeed, because patience is key, and if you're not, you're just gonna be finding yourself running wide and not being able to get on the power as early as you normally would. And of course that slight crest on the exit makes it all the more difficult, and you see cars just drifting wide, losing traction as they clear that crest just after the exit of the corner. Also, it's a very late apex at the second part of Spoon, and even though it's really two corners, if you're really quick indeed and dialed, well balanced, and got a good setup for the car as well, that's able to just stably keep rotating under a slight bit of braking, you can actually take it as one long corner indeed. But it is a dangerous dance to do so, because if you pick up too much heat in the tires, or too little, or you find the tires have all of a sudden gone a bit over the cliff, You might not just have the grip to pull it off, and then there really isn't a lot of space for any fine maneuvering before you find yourself on that aforementioned AstroTurf here. Look at this Bud Boland actually really beginning to claw in some distance here through the first sector up towards the hairpin. He's certainly getting closer on the rear end of Ewan Marshall there in the Team 11 Porsche 911. Team 11, 911. Becomes a large number of 11s in a small frame of time there. But that shouldn't take the focus away from Bud Boland in this Meraki racing car, who's certainly doing a very good job for himself tonight.
He is indeed. We know the BMWs are strong, and he's trying to keep that legacy up here in P5 at the moment, looking to promote himself up into P4 overall, but P4 overall will be P2 in the gold class for himself. But we know Ewan Marshall can drive a very wide Porsche 911, and he's very, very good on the defence. Going through the final chicane now, Bud Boland will be in the draft range well and truly, but it looks like Ewan Marshall might have got the better of the exits. But there you go, you can see the draft starting to take effect now on the run up towards turn 1. The BMW in the hole that the Porsche is punching in the air for him, going up on the or going through turn 1. Ewan Marshall with a slight over rotation on the rear, but continues on. It might have even sped him up a little bit there, going through the S's now. Very much a one-way train here. If you can get an overtake done, you are very, very brave. I think the next overtaking opportunity is maybe coming out the Degners going into the hairpin, so Bud Boland is a waiting game for him at the moment. All he's got to do is sit behind and keep it on the road and see whether the opportunity presents itself. But even if he wants to go for the overtake, he might not necessarily get the chance, because if he's there, the distraction in the rearview mirror will be on Ewan Marshall's mind, and he might make a mistake or might just make the mistake and Bud Boland go streaming by.
Yeah, indeed. There's not going to be a lot of margin for error at the moment here for Ewan Marshall, who's doing his best. That's evident indeed in that number 18 car. But indeed, as again, every time he gets close, it's like he gets in that dirty air, which is a thing in these cars, although, of course, by no means to the same degree as, well, of course, some of the fast open wheelers like Formula 1, which is, of course, the prime example of the dirty air and just how much it can destroy racing. All of a sudden necessitate all kinds of DRS and whatnot. But indeed, it shows the strengths of the Porsche 911 as well. Shows that it's one thing keeping up with it, but another thing passing it here. Although I think the BMW, this is the point of the track where we really see the BMW shine. The stability over the curbs in those slow corners in the Casio triangle. It does seem to be a place where he is able to pick up speed, but actually, as I say that, this time around 0.8 is the gap between the two. So it is indeed growing. And let's not forget the 93 car of Johnny Verhoeven as he takes a big old bump on that inside curb of Degner 1. Exits Degner 2 now up towards the hairpin. Brakes just around the end of that right hand side curb. Throws it into the hairpin. All about the exit here. He does that perfectly indeed. Johnny Verhoeven, a talented gentleman, if ever we've known one. And he's been there or thereabouts for the entirety of this season. And here into Spoon 1. And you see he does exactly that. Of actually taking the two curves as one. And keep the car rotating all the way through. And at the same time having it perfectly set and stable to get on the power for the exit. Johnny Verhoeven looking very dialed indeed. And also showing for it with an 11-second gap down to Ryan Parkins, who, by the way, is still doing an absolutely brilliant job in the beautiful Strasse Porsche Sport 911. And of course, these cars with their red and yellow detailing on the different cars of Carl Sharkey. Well, that's the yellow detailed car, and then the red detailed car of Ryan Parkins here, both very good looking indeed. And now that it seems we for once have a little bit more of a race where we can actually talk about other stuff as well without missing a myriad of things that are actually happening in the race as we speak about other things. Well, don't hold back if you have any kind of feedback for us that you want us to know. We're doing great. We're doing bad. If we're terrible, tell us as well. But even though I don't hope that's what we're getting told. But let us know also if there's anything with the, for instance, if you want the engine noise to get a little louder. I'll know that for next time. Or if it's too loud, or if it's jacked too loud, or just whatever. Let us know. And if you like what you see, do leave us a like as well. If you haven't already, do subscribe for much more iRacing, the very best level of action here as well on Simracersworld TV. We have got a lot of stuff actually coming up over the next couple of days. Tomorrow's Thursdays, that means we've got the GT Evo series. Following this one, that's going to be with Jack Werrell behind the wheel. Not behind the wheel, behind the controls, you could say. I think he's going to be joined by Peter Mackay for tomorrow's race here. Then come the weekend, come Sunday, we have got our very first oval race coming up. It's going to be the Dynamics Daytona 500 here on SRW TV with myself, with Jack Werrell as well, and with the Elephant, if I'm not mistaken at all, which for once, again, I don't think I am. And then, of course, the Sunday Drivers MX5 Series to round it all off. What, Sven, is it next Sunday? I'm gonna check my... That is not next Sunday, it's this Sunday, goddammit.
Yeah, this Sunday it will be, it's you in the box, isn't it, Hasse, for the Sunday Drivers MX5 Series, but with Peter Mackay, as I covered him for the Sunday Sim Racer Coin Sunday GT3 World League last Sunday. I thought, you know what, I've covered one for him. Let's treat him to the Sunday Drivers MX5 Series, and I've got to say, I think he's just gone for it, saying, oh well, I owe him one, but I think he might end up glued to the screen because it's such an amazing championship with drivers so close. Last week at Silverstone, we had two teammates battling for the lead within a second the entire race, and it was won on the final lap. Like, the position was only settled going through the final corner, and I think you are definitely in for a treat this Sunday if you manage to get along. But speaking of battles, this is Bod Boland still chasing down Ewan Marshall, and he's been doing this lap after lap after lap after lap, and we've got, what, 10-15 minutes before the next pit window opens. And I've got to say, I think that is the only chance that Bod Boland will get to get past Ewan Marshall. But then, if he gets past in the pit lane, he's got all the work to do because he's got to defend lap after lap after lap after lap from Sam Bentham. But all this battling means that Ryan Parkins has just disappeared into the distance, and so is Johnny Verhoeven. Johnny Verhoeven is long gone now. I'm pretty sure he's just driven well off the island by now. But Ryan Parkins is years away. I think 8 seconds up the road is Ryan Parkins, and then we get Sam Bentham as well, who's disappearing, and then we finally get back to this battle of Ewan Marshall and Bod Boland. But a little further up the road, I've got to say, I think I might be looking at the wrong battle here. No, I am looking at the right battle. I was on about a little bit further back. We've got Seb Herbera under pressure from Job de Ligt. That's what I was looking at, Hasse. I got confused with my timing as always, but Job de Ligt still looking to pick up positions. He's gained 8 from where he started. He started in the pit lane, so he did gain back 20 incident points, and let's hope tonight hasn't collected many of those back. But Seb Herbera, we know he's good on the defence, but we also know he's very good on the attack as well. So Job de Ligt, he might get right alongside and get the move made, but then he's got to keep an eye on his rearview mirrors because Seb is a very good, not necessarily aggressive, but very good at placing his car almost to force the move. So I'm looking forward to see how this battle evolves.
Indeed, De Ligt has shown that he's coming through the field with impetus. But he's also been looking a little impatient at times. Remember, he had that slight touch error. Oh, look at this Sepp Hebra. Certainly not wanting to risk anything here. He lets Joop De Ligt straight past, and also just an admission of the Manatee driver's pace. And that goes for the entirety of the team. They have been really one of the teams to beat, alongside G-Drive, of course, who's been atop pretty much every single race so far. One or the other way here. Johnny Verhoef, as you mentioned earlier, he has gone away from the rest of the field. And look at this here. Bud Boland into the triangle. Oh, he just got the car turned in right this time around. And I think he might have the run on Ewan Marshall. But the Porsche, strong on corner exits. He is in the slipstream. Jack, I think he's a little bit closer this time around. But is it going to be enough for Ewan Marshall? They're coming into turn 1 here. And it would yet again require a mistake from Ewan Marshall, who is driving around with a Scottish flag on his rear spoiler. So you would imagine him to be a proud Scotsman indeed. And not to offend you, Jack, the English are wonderful people as well, but what warm, nice people you meet up there in the cold, dark north. I've been to Scotland twice, and really, I went to Edinburgh, that is. I might have a different story to tell from Glasgow. I'm not sure, I haven't been there yet. But lovely people in Edinburgh, and made me a fish and chips addict officially as well. And I can't really find a place that'll serve you a really proper, like, fish and chips here in Denmark, and I'm sad about that. But back to racing, and I'll take my travel advice to the Lonely Planet or somewhere else. And Bud Boland is still looking for it. It's still just around half a second. It hovers up and down, of course. He's got the aid of the slipstream time and time again, but you can just see how that Porsche is just a little bit stronger, I think, in the corners. And time again, Ewan Marshall is able to get the better exit. Yet again here, half a second. It seems the BMW scrubs off a little extra speed there through the right-hand kink, which is, of course, flat. But seems to make it, as you said, Jack, if there isn't really a mistake from Marshall ahead, I think Bud Boland is looking at the pit stop as his best and perhaps only chance to get past here. And that pit stop coming up in, I expect, 10 to perhaps maybe even 15 minutes. And then it's all about making it as short as possible for around final 20 minutes run to the line here. It really has spread out for the rest of the field here. Now 2 seconds between Hebra and Joop De Ligt up in front. And then further down the order, I believe John Tusting is pretty close to Matthias Temme by now, up ahead. Looking at the last lap times though, Matthias Temme is actually driving away from John Tusting at the moment here. Seems to be. So again, Ewan Marshall, Bud Boland, that battle for 4th place, and it certainly isn't going anywhere. So we're 4 minutes away from the 1 hour mark. That's also 2/3 of the race done, and we've seen a very eventful opening half an hour, and even up until the halfway mark. And then over the last 10 minutes or so, it's really settled down, Jack.
It has. It's gone very, very quiet apart from this battle. This is the only real battle we've got on the circuit at the moment. And we keep on referring back to Bud Boland's strategy, thinking that might be the only way he's going to get the overtake. And I think he knows it as well, because he's been sat in the draft for well over 10 laps now. And that's got to have made a difference with his fuel, because he can afford to lift and coast going into corners, because he'll be carrying those extra mile an hour in the slipstream, so he might have saved a fair bit of fuel. So whether that adds up to a lap, I don't know. But Bod Boland will be in a very comfortable position with his strategy for the moment. He's in the driving. He's very much in the driving seat, if you will. But the P5 driver at the moment still P3 in class. But if he gets this overtake, it will promote him up into P2. And somebody we haven't seen for a lot of the race, Hasse. And I know we like to watch the battles, but I've got to say this one's been going lap after lap after lap with very little changing. I want to go up and have a look at our leader still, because Johnny Verhoef, he built the gap. And it's staying exactly the same now. It's floating around the 12-second mark. So whether Johnny Verhoef has just backed it up a little bit to make sure he can stay on the road and keep it clean for the rest of the race, or Ryan Parkins has very much picked up the pace, and I fear that is the issue, because he's grown his gap to Sam Bentham now 6 seconds ahead of Sam and 12 seconds behind Johnny in front. But the Strasser Porsche Sport driver doing a brilliant job, and of course Porsche Sport being the title sponsor of the series, so a massive thank you to Porsche Sport for sponsoring the series. Back to this battle, Hasse. Bod Boland still behind Ewan Marshall. He's been getting maybe more confident, because we kept seeing him within the half a second mark. He's now consistently below sort of 0.4 and 0.3 of a second. So whether that is just him getting more and more confident, or it's him starting to size up the move. But like you said, we're getting closer and closer to that second pit window. So this is where Ewan Marshall has to make a decision. Does he back it off and maybe slow Bod Boland down a little bit, or does he dive into the pits and see what he can do in strategy? Because both drivers, I'm assuming at this point, are starting to tot up the figures and decide which strategy they're going to be running going into the last stage, the last stint of the race.
Yeah, indeed, and seeing how we saw the first pit stops happening in around 35 minutes into the race, we'll just have to assume that the pit window is basically open for the rest of the race now, but that you just want to go as far as possible into it, just to have a light as possible car to run for the final bit of the race here. It does indeed seem, I was just noting that Bod Boland actually got within 0.2 of a second onto Ewan Marshall there as they came into Spoon, but the BMW doesn't really seem to be able to take that particular curve as quickly as the Porsche. And again, Ewan Marshall left with just enough breathing space, unless it is all a big old exercise in patience from Bod Boland. Of course, Stephen DeWolf with a very good point here that Ewan Marshall is indeed an ex-Meraki driver. So chances are that not only from the SRW GT Pro Series, but from being teammates as well, they know each other, and that they are also being very respectful indeed towards one another here. And it's a quality for a driver as well to just know that, alright, I might not actually be able to set lap times that are that much quicker than that car in front, and my best chance here is just to try to save the fuel and get him on the pit stop, which could indeed be the strategy here of Bod Boland. Now, I think for sometimes it's been quiet here, but John Barnes, I'm afraid, has had a bit of a problem here. He picks up the grass there on the outside of Dunlop, if I'm not mistaken indeed, and he has to stay put for a moment or two until he can get the car rolling again. Good stuff for him, checking his relative as into the pits comes the race leader. Takes a nice camouflage approach to things here as he's well hidden behind that beautiful bush. We reckon it's only fuel, no tires here for Johnny Verhoef. That's a relatively quick pit stop, and of course it's a replay now, so we're back to live pictures, and he actually well up through an hour into the race and just a little bit more than that as well. So it seems to me, Jack, that Johnny Verhoef isn't really taking it as far as he could on strategy. Do you reckon he's just trying to play it safe from here?
Yeah, I think that might be the best bet, because he went into the pit lane with a 12-second advantage over now our current leader of Ryan Parkins. So he knows he's got the time in hand and the ability to pull away, but those little blinks there, they might cost him, because yes, it distracts the cars around you, but it distracts you as well. It almost puts a little bit of fear within you, thinking, oh god, I hope my internet can last until the end of the race. But Johnny Verhoeven still continuing on at a rapid rate of knots, and all he's got to do now is keep it on the road. Even if he backs it up a couple of tenths, maybe even a second a lap, by the time Ryan Parkins has gone into the pit lane and come back out again, and we've gone towards the latter stages of the race, he's still going to be well and truly out in front. Ryan Parkins with now an 8-second lead over Sam Bentham, so that's come up by 2 seconds in the last 2 laps. So Ryan Parkins has definitely put his foot to the floor. There's Ewan Marshall with Bod Boland still giving chase. Let's see whether either of these peel into the pit lane this time by. No, both of them continue on to take another lap in the book, going on to lap 33 now, 1 hour and 2 minutes into the race, crossing the timing lead now, and still running nice and close is this pair. We will have to keep an eye on the other drivers though, because everybody has pitted once apart from Johnny Verhoeven, our original leader, who's obviously pitted twice. So I can guarantee the pit lane, much like in the first half of the race, is going to get very, very, very busy with lots of alternating strategies. And I think the only time we'll ever really know who is in with a shout of winning this race will be, come, 20 minutes time, by the time we're going into the very last couple of minutes of the race, as we've now got Carl Sharkey peeling off into the pit lane.
Yeah, indeed, Sharkey coming in from P8. He's immediately got to get overtaken there by Jeremy Hessels. And I was actually coming in from 9th. Jeremy Jessels. Jeremy Hessel's already getting the job done there. With his Boland 0.65 of a second behind into the hairpin. More so, I think, but Boland seems to be carrying a very measured approach to this race at the moment. He's trying to be too aggressive. He did that for a couple of times, and it seems like, to me, he did actually try at some point to really see, okay, can I just squeeze a little bit of extra pace out this car, get the run on this guy ahead, and get ahead of him. But the conclusion, I think, for him as well was not without any substantial risks taken. That's, of course, never really worth it. Mind you, he's in a very good position. He's currently in a virtual 5th place with all pit stops taken into account. And I believe that's a big part of it as well, that you don't want to take too many risks when you're in such a good position. Of a really good result here. And the same, of course, for Ewan Marshall, 2 tenths faster on the final lap there, or the last lap, which is, of course, not the final lap of the race. Here is Johnny Verhoeven and Joop de Ligt, the 2 managing cars, but of course, de Ligt a pit stop behind. And expect to see everyone more or less coming into the box between, well, now and then for the next 5 minutes or so. And it'll then be the final dash to the line, 20 odd minutes to get it all sorted. Indeed, Ryan Parkins, the lead of the race here. He's done so well of just disposing of Sam Bentham as he's gone along. And Jack, to my memory, we've yet really to see Ryan Parkins make a mistake as well this race.
Yeah, he's driven an absolutely perfect race as Ryan. It's great to see that the Porsche's right up there in with its competitive nature once again, and obviously that's helped by the talent of Ryan Parkins. We know he's very, very quick behind the wheel of a Porsche. John Barnes going into the hairpin, over-rotates the car on the brakes. I think he might have changed down maybe a little too early, and the rear axle couldn't keep up, but a position lost for him. Here is, as Hasse called him, Jeremy Jessels going into Degner 1, goes in very, very quickly. Does a great job of getting it back on the road and getting it slowed down. I've got to say, 9 times out of 10, every time I've done that, I touch the gravel, hit the brakes, and they go straight on into the wall, but continues on. So great driving from Jeremy. But John Barnes now going up towards both the Degners. Let's see how he negotiates it. Now we're going to go back up to Johnny Verhoeven for Manatee Racing, who I think he was chasing down his teammate, but he might have just peeled off into the pit lane. He has Joop de Ligt now in the pit lane. He's behind who was that? I think that was the lapped Porsche for Fury Simsport of Matthias Temmer, who has been into the pit lane twice. So has Neil Keeper in front. So both the Fury Simsport cars have been into the pit lane. So has Johnny Verhoeven. Job de Ligt is in the pit lane now. And the only other car I think that has gone into the pit lane twice is Carl Sharkey. So lots of differing strategies as expected, but I think the one we need to look out for is Ewan Marshall and Bod Boland, because those two are still battling away, but they might still be on differing strategies, because you can only drag a certain amount out of a fuel tank, but it's whether you pit in before you go onto your last lap of fuel or you pit in on your last lap of fuel. So those two need to get their thinking caps on and decide when they are going to pit. Looking back from Matthias Temmer now, you can see Johnny Verhoeven with desperation in his eyes trying to get by, and obviously Johnny Verhoeven, we know he's the original leader as well, so he's desperate to lose as little time as possible. A little flash of the lights there, I think, but going up towards Spoon Curve, I think the opportunity will present itself on the run up to 130i. You can see it's a little bit too far back now, but he will have the draft assistance, and I've got to say, we know Johnny is very, very good at sizing up these overtakes. So on the run up to 130i, Hasse, I think he's going to get the move done.
Yeah, I have no doubts that Tim as well is going to get out of the way at some point here. He just about has to. Johnny Verhoeven has a big old look, doesn't have the space, doesn't want to risk it. He knows that he doesn't necessarily have to be overly aggressive with it here into the Casio triangle by now. Matthias Temmer should yield the space, and he does onto the start-finish straight and picks up the grass on the outside. Oh my word, Matthias Temmer just trying to get the space. It's a bit of a dangerous place to do so. We did speak about that kink earlier on. It really catches people out, and this time around Matthias Temmer the victim, and he just about keeps it under control and gets the car running. No real danger as someone passes him in there on the outside. We're back to live pictures. Johnny Verhoeven there getting it done, but he did lose some time now. He's about 5 seconds off to the rear of Bod Boland, who's lost a little bit as well up to Ewan Marshall. Very, very strong indeed on his pace. Sam Bentham with his last lap was a 154.5. So the BMW driver here for Ronin Simsport is certainly putting down the pace at the moment. And just 0.2 slower than him on his last lap was Ryan Parkins indeed, who's also looking dialed up there. And I think this is going to be the lap that we're going to see those final guys. It's actually just about half the field still haven't come in. They're trying to stretch it to the final minutes here of the pit window. Oh, is that from the pit lane? He's losing positions. And that indeed it is here. Matthias Temmer just going to have another look at that incident from before. As for a short moment, I actually thought something else happened to him there. Anyway, Ryan Parkins, our race leader at the moment, coming in for his second and final stop. Of course, mind you that Johnny Verhoeven, currently in 5th place, already has had that pit stop. So we do expect the Dutchman from Manatee Racing to reclaim the lead of the race here as Jeremy Hessels is now a relatively long way back, Jack. Well, the question is what happened to him on this pit stop. I didn't really expect him to lose this much time here as the rest of the top 4 now into the pits. And that does indeed mean that Johnny Verhoeven is back as on top as well. Here goes Ryan Parkins. And he's going to be comfortably ahead of Sam Bentham as well. Traffic now, and this one's going to be really important. I'm going to switch to our special pit lane cam here to just see there at the bottom of the picture. We're looking for Ewan Marshall and for Bod Boland, who's both exiting now. Let's see, there goes Marshall, there goes Boland. So the Porsche out ahead. Someone called it that it would be difficult for the BMW, even with the slipstream, to match the fuel economy of the Porsche 911. That's turned out to be very true indeed, because not only has Ewan Marshall kept his position, but he's stretched his advantage and actually somewhat doubled it. It's now 1.5 seconds. So of course, within these kind of margins, it doesn't take a lot to double your lead. But important there, Jack, for Ewan Marshall that he came out ahead of Bod Boland.
It definitely was. But I think, yeah, Bod Boland won't be happy with himself with that one after losing so much time in the pit lane. Both the Quantum Racing BMWs, all of the Quantum Racing BMWs in the pit lane now. So the pit lane painted with black and pink BMWs. So Paul Gosling leading that trio, then John Barnes, then John Tusting. You spoke about Jeremy Hessel's, I think, losing all that time in the pit lane, and looking at our timing screen on the left-hand side, Jeremy Hessel spent 1 minute and 22 seconds in the pit lane. So from pit entry to pit exit, it was 1 minute 22 seconds. Opposing to the rest of the drivers, which seem to be floating around the 43-second mark. So whether he had damage or he forgot to turn off tyres or something like that, but he has lost a hell of a lot of time. And now look at this. This is an inter-team battle. Paul Gosling with John Barnes on his tail. And I've got to say, it's been a very good outing for Quantum Racing. Although there aren't many cars on the grid, there's only 15 still running. 3 of them are all Quantum Racing BMWs. And they're showing off that livery in beautiful fashion with the teammates pretty much glued to each other the entire race, and these two are the closest pairing on the circuit. And we've got to remember, although it all looks very sort of simple here, it's just teammates having a bit of a scrap, this is for position overall and position in class as well. And we know that the more points you can get, the more prizes you can get. So at this point, John Barnes, you've got to think, if he's in the same voice chat as Paul Gosling, does he sort of have a word and say, right mate, let's all cards off the table, we may be teammates, but I'm going for this?
Well, it's a good question indeed. You always want to be able to race with teammates, but you really don't want to take it too far, that's for sure. And I think there's a good chance they'll be able to communicate with one another on team radio. I think Paul Gosling settles it for him there, because he goes wide. And oh, look at that, John Barnes hardly even wanting to get up the inside. Now they're going to go side by side down the back straight, down the kink here towards 130R. Although John Barnes now ahead, and that's of course the wise decision from both to just slot in there or go single file around the quickest corner of the track here. And further up ahead, Bud Boland now attempting to claw his way back onto the tail of Ewan Marshall. He's gained 0.6 of a second. And over that final lap, or that last lap for him, it was just around a 10th gain as well. But after the pit stop, he's gained 0.6. So he's looking to get back up there. And look at this Joop de Ligt, who started from the pits. We've mentioned this on a number of occasions, I'm well aware. But what a return, what a drive it's been from the Dutchman to overtake so much of the grid and do it in a, well, let's say, a completely orderly fashion. Hasn't been that he had that small collision, but in the end the car's still clean alive, and he's ready to charge onto the top 5 with Bud Boland all of a sudden seeing a car in his mirrors. That hasn't happened to him, I'm afraid, for quite some time. And look at that, the lap times, ladies and gents. Joop de Ligt around a second up on Bud Boland here over the last lap alone. And it's going to be interesting to see just how much they're going to battle, Jack. If you were in Bud Boland's shoes, or in his seat, if you will, at the moment, would you just let Joop de Ligt pass on through and let him deal with Ewan Marshall and just hope that there would be scraps to pick up from that battle?
It's a tricky one, because we know Bud Boland, he would lose a position overall, but not in class, and he is slowly catching Ewan Marshall. The gap has come down from 1.6 seconds to 1.1 now on the exit of Degner 2, so he's definitely gaining, possibly with the help of Joop de Ligt, because if you see Joop appear in your rearview mirror, you want to drive away from him as fast as you can, because you know that he will be there and there to stay without an incident for John Barnes. But I think Bud Boland, yeah, it might be better just to let Joop de Ligt by, maybe sit underneath his rear wing, let Joop do all the hard work catching up, and 9 times out of 10, if Joop makes the move and opens the door, you can follow him straight through. Multiple incident for John Barnes. Now, Hasse, let's have a look to see what happened to him.
Yeah, there's been several incidents indeed here. Let's take him from an end off here. Matthias Temme has had a problem. That is at the exit of turn 1 here, coming up towards the S's. Gets fishtaily, cuts across the grass, and actually keeps it fairly straight. And that situation here is a problem for Paul Gosling. That's into Degner 1. And he just gets the smallest of off tracks, but it's going to be any more problem for him because we did see he got another one here. But I think it actually is John Barnes. Oh, that's John Barnes. Oh, and he's going to hit the wall, exiting 130R into the triangle. His teammates losing it on the braking. And look at this. Is that Verhoeven? No, that is Johnny Verhoeven, the race leader. And John Barnes, a true gentleman, he gets out of the way of the race leader. Doesn't want to get involved with anything when carrying damage. And oh, there's a small more and one more off track. And actually, Jack, he's had another situation here. Is that the situation that we saw before, or is that because he stopped the car ever so briefly here, returning to the track? So luckily for John Barnes, no more incidents, at least in this round. But a tough one for John Barnes to get through there. And indeed, I think Stephen, for me, Joop de Ligt has to be a candidate for that as well. But I think alongside a couple of the Porsche drivers who's done very well. And John Barnes, you're going to have to wonder if that football card of his is that actually John Barnes, the footballer, or the ex-footballer, if you will, or is it just because of a name coincidence? Jack, your take.
Well, I don't really watch football. I'm too busy watching cars drive in circles, you know. So I don't really have much time for other sports. And I've got to say, I didn't even link that. I saw the photo and I didn't think, hang on a minute, that's probably a connection there. That's Luke in chat picking up on that sort of brought my attention to it. But I'm none the wiser really with kicking an inflated bag of leather about a pitch. But it looks like he's got his hands busy enough at the moment with sim racing. We've had a couple of spins for him. We had a spin and then him finding himself in the wall on the exit of 130R. But look at this now, Joop de Ligt, he's got a great run coming out the final corner, and there we go, Bod Boland pulling over to the inside. Joop de Ligt without the draft assistance, still pulling in front, and now Bod Boland, he has got the perfect position to gain all that time on Ewan Marshall, so he's behind Joop de Ligt now. If they're in a voice chat in the race, I'd probably just be saying, right, come on, let's work together and see what we can do about catching Ewan. But we know what Bod Boland is like. He might have let him by for the moment, but let's see how long that lasts. We know Joop de Ligt's quicker, but how quick is he under pressure from the number 26 Meraki Racing BMW? It looks like he's building that gap quite quickly already. 8 tenths between the pair of them. The gap has come down to Ewan Marshall, 2 tenths in Sector 1. It seems like the BMW is quicker through the first half of the circuit. Going into the second half of the circuit, the higher speed stuff, the Porsche seems to have the edge. Now on the run up towards the left-hand hairpin, the gap's still 8 tenths now, 7 tenths now, 6 tenths now, half a second going in towards the hairpin. Great stuff from Bod Boland, did get it slowed down, and now back up to the 8 tenth margin between the pair of them. But the gap still to Ewan Marshall. It's come down very, very marginally, but not to quite the extent I was expecting. But something I've also noticed, speaking of gaps, going into the pit lane, Johnny Verhoeven has a 12-second gap. The gap is now 8 seconds to Ryan Parkins. So whether Johnny Verhoeven has taken his foot off the gas like I expected, or Ryan Parkins has gone, right, yeah, let's be having you, because he's been setting quick lap after quick lap after quick lap. The last lap, Ryan Parkins lapped 7 tenths quicker than Johnny Verhoeven. So I think Ryan has got his sights set high, but with only 10 minutes of the race to go, I've got to say, I think his luck might run out unless he can lap a second quicker every lap than Johnny Verhoeven for the foreseeable future. I don't think much will come of this, but we've also got to remember mistakes can happen. Mistakes
can indeed happen, and we also did see Verhoeven caught up behind traffic there early on as he was behind Matthias Temme for quite some time, and I'm thinking that might be what's been making a contribution to whatever time he's lost. But of course, at this moment, 9 minutes of the race remaining, it would be silly for Johnny Verhoeven to begin taking risks now in a commanding position to just go through at his own pace without taking risks, as I mentioned. And it does seem to me that he's just focused on bringing it home. I'm also just thinking that the BMW could be a little harder on the tires, and that we are seeing that the Porsches will gain favor here at the end of the race with that tire advantage. It's worth noting also that Joop de Ligt now still behind Ewan Marshall. I think he gets a very good run from the hairpin there, and Joop de Ligt is 4/10 of the rear end of Ewan Marshall. And into spoon 1 they go. Ewan Marshall looking good, but Joop de Ligt with that late apex, just see how he straight lines the exit, uses all of the curb there, all of the AstroTurf as well, every bit of track that's allowed, and possibly a wee bit more as he enters 130R. Just keeps it, but look at the speed of the Porsche through 130R. That's part of the reason, I think, why the BMWs of all sorts, no matter who's been behind on the wheel of those cars, they've been finding difficulty getting the real run here on Ewan Marshall. If his setup is different from any of the other Porsches, well, I'm not quite sure, but he's carrying really big speed through 130R, and it's paying dividends so far here. Jack, do you think he's going to be able to keep Joop de Ligt behind him until the checkered flag?
No, if I'm honest. We know Joop is very, very, very quick behind the wheel of that Manatee BMW, and we know he can play aggressive and he can play rough, but I think he's been in this race for long enough now to know the limits of himself and the car to just pick off Ewan Marshall. And we've got to think, yeah, Joop might have him on pure pace, but Ewan Marshall will know that Joop de Ligt has been gaining the entire race. He started in the pit lane, and I think who was it that was in chat? It was Stephen de Wolf that said Joop driver of the day, and I've got to say, I've got to agree with you. A brilliant job. A bit of contact and a bit of argy-bargy at the earlier stages of the race, but we've still got to remember he started in the pit lane, and that's just not like, oh, the last car's passed, pit exit, you can go now. It's you start in your pit box, wait a little bit longer, and then you go out on the pit limiter, and then finally, once you get to the pit exit, you can unleash your GTE machine. But yeah, Joop de Ligt, a brilliant job from right the way at the back end of the order, kept it clean for the most part all the way up through the 1 hour and 25 minute almost into the race so far. And yeah, he's in the top 5, and I think he's going to be looking for the top 4. He is still on the platinum podium, riding on board with Joop de Ligt. Lifts off, decides that this isn't the place for the overtake. Clever driving from the number 19, but yeah, he's done a brilliant job, fully deserving of the class podium, and I've got to say, I think he's deserving of the overall podium. Sam Bentham a little sideways going through the final chicane. That will have ruined his run going on to the start-finish straight. I'm guessing the overtake's going to happen here. He's tucked underneath the rear wing as Joop de Ligt dives to the inside, carry the momentum down the straight. What can he do? There is an overlap now going up towards turn 1. Who's braver on the brakes? Joop de Ligt has got the preferred line later on the brakes, throws it towards the apex, aims it at the middle of the corner, and there we go, position made up into P4 for Joop de Ligt. But that, I think, was the cork in the bottle for Bod Boland, because all that battling has now brought Bod Boland back into the mix. Half a second between Bod Boland and Ewan Marshall, and I think Bod isn't going to be as patient this time. He's waited an entire race for this moment to come around again, and he's not going to give it away. We've got battles in the background as well apparently anyway, because I saw a change of position for Jordan McClone and Carl Sharkey. Did he make another mistake going through 130R? It looks like he's kept it clean for the most part. Going into the braking area, does he hit the grass? No, that's quite different. Did you see the change of position as well, Hasse?
Yeah, I didn't indeed see it, but it was a big blink here for Carl Sharkey that caused it. He reappears into existence and is back in front of McClone, which I think is what caused the slight confusion for our system here. I am, though... No, nothing. Anyway, Joop de Ligt is now in 4th place. Ewan Marshall and Bod Boland, well, we're back to status quo, I want to say, for those two, except for the only difference now, they're not fighting for 4th, but for 5th place in the end. But what speaks in favor of Ewan Marshall is that these two drivers have basically been spending the entirety of the race in this very situation, with very similar time gaps as well. And that speed we saw through 130R, Ewan Marshall really using it well to defend himself. Oh, and we've had incidents for Paul Gosling and for Matthias Temme. And I think, thinking of track position of those two cars, it must be two isolated incidents. Here's Gosling. He's coming into the Casio triangle, just goes a little wide, chooses to stay to the left-hand side of the track, not to cause any calamities. So again, the Quantum drivers showing great gentlemanship there. Oh, Matthias Temme, you know what, Jack? That looks like a loss of concentration, because he kind of just stopped turning, and that almost went big time wrong there for Matthias Temme, who keeps it running here. Look at this now, Ewan Marshall, it's half a second. He is coming up through the Dunlop corner here, which is a very long left-hander indeed, which leads more or less directly into the Deckners. And this is the place, if you can get the run through Deckners 1 and 2, it's going to side you up very nice for an overtake into the hairpin here. 0.4 of a second. I don't think Bud Boland is going to be close enough this time around. Although we have seen the BMW be very strong, exiting that slow hairpin indeed. So perhaps this is the place for him to get a run here. But Spoon Curve is really not the place to attempt overtakes. I mean, it's possible, but usually if you do so, if you try it, it's going to be forceful, to say the least. And Ewan Marshall nowhere near striking distance here. He needs to get the run though, Bud Boland. Let's see how close is he. 0.3 of a second. Oh, it might be enough. It might be the time here for Bud Boland. But again, Jack, it seems he enters the start-finish straight with just around a half a second's worth of advantage time and time again. And it also seems to me that it's just about enough to keep Bud Boland out of reach there as he enters turn 1 again, 0.3 of a second behind. And you mentioned more aggression needed there from Boland if he wants to see this succeed. Well, he's running out of time now, Jack, as we're approaching the final minute of the race.
He is indeed, but Bud Boland still hot on the heels of Ewan Marshall. In the background, though, speaking of going into the final minute of the race and needing more aggression, Jordan McClone, he's massively closed up to the tail end of Caravan Carl Sharkey for Strasser Porsche Sport, as pointed out by Porsche Sport in chat. Here comes Bud Boland though on the run up to the hairpin. It looks like he lifted out of that move though, because he was closing up, dive to the inside. Ewan Marshall runs slightly wide, compromises his line, and Ewan Marshall maybe getting the position back by sheer luck. I think it looked like Bud Boland almost pulled over and said, no, you know what, I want to get the position properly, I'm not just going to take it by default. So Ewan Marshall giving away an opportunity there Bud Boland, giving away the opportunity to Ewan Marshall. That would have been an extra position in class as well, as we now go on to the final lap of the race for the leader, but that's still another 5.75 kilometre rotation of the circuit, so best part of 2 minutes for Johnny Verhoeven, so we've still got plenty of time. But look at this now, Bud Boland getting closer and closer and closer through 130R, lifts off a little bit just for safety now, going into the final chicane. What can he do on the brakes? Closes up a little bit, has a look to the inside, lets him know that he is still on his way, going through the final chicane, going on to the penultimate lap this time by. Bud Boland still there or thereabouts, has a little bit of a wiggle coming through the final corner, half a second the gap, so I think that bit of a mistake coming out of the final corner has cost him dearly going in towards turn 1. But in the background, still Carl Sharkey with Jordan McClone behind, and I think if Jordan McClone plays his cards right, he might even pick up a position on the last lap.
Indeed, if he can really get just that little bit closer to Carl Sharkey. He's got one more lap to get it done here, and Jordan McClone's been on a roll for the last couple of laps. Let's see last lap times here. He was half a second up on Sharkey, so if he can keep on that kind of pace advantage, he would be inside his car more or less as they cross the line. Of course, that's not going to happen, so it's going to be either or now for Jordan McClone. Maximum send. It's been a good race for the 727 Simpac car, who is running well up into the top 10 here into turn 1. He comes. Oh, and he's really harrying the rear end of Carl Sharkey now.
Johnny Verhoeven's on his way to cross the line, Hasse, though.
Yes, he is indeed. So let's go check with the race winner, Johnny Verhoeven for Manatee Racing, who takes a brilliant lights to flag win, except for a few laps of, well, other cars and a differing pit strategy. But there was no real challenge. The closest challenge came from Ryan Parkins, who takes a brilliant podium for Simracersworld and for the Porsche 911. I think, if I'm not mistaken, for the first time this season. And it's been a good race for Ryan. I want to say faultless indeed here. Sam Bentham, who's really flown under the radar as well, comes home for third. It's been really good performances from both Ryan Parkins and Sam Bentham. But speaking of performances, this might just be the drive of the race, and it's not the first time we've seen it from the top drivers, really just showing what they're made of. Joop de Ligt from the pit lane to 4th place to pick up a load of championship points. Anyway, here Ewan Marshall makes it to the line ahead of Bud Boland, separated by those magical 0.5 of a second, which is certainly not the first time we've seen those two cars separated by that number, because it's been more or less the distance between them. Oh, here, look at this McLaren. I'm sorry, Jack, but I'll let you commentate on it here. Into the triangle they go.
I was about to say, Carl Sharkey has got immense pressure from Jordan McClone. There's contact between the pair of them. Jordan McClone was on the inside. It looked like Carl might have left him racing room, or a little less there, but Jordan McClone on the last corner of the last lap picks up a P8 finish. And that is a position overall, not a position in class though. Carl Sharkey drops down into P9. Only one more car to cross the line, and that's Neil Cooper. But I think we should have a look back at that, Hasse. That was incredibly close going into the final chicane. It'll be interesting to see your thoughts on the move, if we can ride on board with McLaren.
Let's see if I can bring it up. Here we go, on board with Jordan McClone, indeed.
It should say on the event viewer
here. And I don't think this will give us the entire last lap, basically. But I think he gives the position back at the end. No, he's finished ahead of Carl Sharkey in the end, so he might have tried to give the position back, but it didn't succeed. I don't have it on my event viewers, strangely enough, so we're going to have to make do with this. But down towards the hairpin, still very close indeed here for McClone. And the question is just if it was an avoidable incident or one of those incidents where you just have to say, okay, two cars just going for it. And it's what you call a racing incident. If it is, that's what I would think. So knowing Jordan McClone, a teammate of mine, a very respectful driver in the end, but need be a dispute there, Cammy. We're gonna have to see about that. I'm not gonna be the judge because I'm gonna let the stewards do their job. And not try to ruin it in any way here. But strangely, I'm not seeing this in the event viewer. But now that we've gotten the entirety of the lap, here is the moment. And I'm gonna just throw in a bit of slow motion to give us all the time in the world to see just what happened here. Look, look, look. Oh, that's an absolute scent, Jack.
It is. It's a good job from Jordan McClone to get it slowed down. Then going into the left-hander, it looks like Carl Sharkey might have... I think they actually were going towards the same piece of tarmac. Very, very little to choose between them. Jordan McClone has got to turn for the corner at some point, but maybe not that early. I don't want to apportion blame on either party, but that is just what happens when you're racing door-to-door in very, very similar cars. And sadly, Carl Sharkey did lose out on the last lap, but we do have some results for you. Johnny Verhoeven with a demanding win for Manatee Racing, making the most of a G-Drive no-show this evening. The winner of the race, the winner of the class, of course, as well, 7.7 seconds ahead of gold class winner and second overall Ryan Parkins. A dominating drive from himself behind the wheel of that Strasser Porsche Sport Machine. Sam Bentham rounds out the overall podium and finishes second in class. Joop de Ligt finishes fourth and rounds out your platinum podium in the second Manatee Racing car. Ewan Marshall finishes fifth overall, second in class. Bud Boland rounds out your gold podium in sixth position. Then we get to Seb Herberer and Jordan McClone and Carl Sharkey, 8th and 9th, changing position on the last lap. Neil Cooper rounds out your top 10. Then we get back to Jeremy Hessels, Paul Gosling, John Barnes, John Tusting, and Matthias Temme, the last of your runners. Then we get to the earlier retirements of Ryan Walker, Jack Ashton, and Martin van der Ewijk. And with what was a small grid, I've got to say, there was very little time in that race where there wasn't a battle to watch. And I think even if we had only 15 runners for the majority of the race, there was still some brilliant racing throughout the order. And to see so few people turn up, but so many inter-class battles and so many drivers battling tooth and nail that we haven't seen all season, it just shows the true ability of this championship and the true ability of the drivers that have entered as well.
Indeed, it really does, and it was an absolute pleasure to follow this race, also because it kind of gave us time to follow the individual battles more in depth and not have to swing too much between the different battles. Sometimes you just end up losing a little bit of the action here and there, so I think that was really great to see. And what a great battle there, race long between Ewan Marshall and Bud Boland, and Ewan Marshall really showing his racecraft on many occasions, just aiming for the exits time and time again on the important places where you can really make the difference. He made that difference, and on the strategy as well, he stayed ahead, but for so long, and it was brilliant to see. Joop de Ligt, I have to say, what a performance. Johnny Verhoeven and all the top 3 drivers today did really well as well. And then the Quantum Racing cars and their beautiful liveries celebrating the birth of Dave and Sam's daughter. Nice to see as well. I think it's time to get our heads into the interview section, Jack, and we've got a mystery man who's not called his civil name in Discord, so do you want to have do you have a random? Let's see who it is. Let's drag him in. It's a masked man. We don't know who it is. Jack with someone.
Yes, so I'm not 100% sure who this is, but please show yourself. We don't obviously know your name.
It's Sam. It's Sam Bentham.
Oh, Sam, that was quite a lonely race for you, because we saw you slowly catching up and then overtaking Ryan Parkins at the earlier stages of the race, and then losing out, and it just seemed to go from there. You finished where you started. So it's not all bad, but taking a podium and a P2 in class, that's a great haul of points. Do you think you made the most of the smaller grid and obviously D-Drive not showing up this evening?
Yeah, kind of. Like, it's in terms of like absolute quality of my drive, it probably wasn't the best that I've done. And honestly, I probably drove a bit better at Imola last time out, where I got P5 when there was a few more people on the grid. I've been a bit off today. Head's a bit scrambled, not feeling great. So I'm quite pleased just to stick it out, keep it on the black stuff, and obviously take a decent result.
Well, I've got to say you did a brilliant job. We didn't pick on many incidents, if any, during the stream, so it can't be all bad. And you do sound quite disappointed with the podium, but I've got to say it's no mean feat to get a podium in season 7 of the SRW GT Pro Series. You can imagine how difficult it was in the earlier seasons, but now getting into the almost scarily close to double figures to get on the podium, and not just in class but the podium overall as well, that's no mean feat. So well done to yourself and obviously your team for picking up a great haul of points. Going into Road Atlanta in 2 weeks' time, what do you think that is going to bring for yourself? Because we've got a sneaking suspicion that the grid will go back to the normal sort of 30 plus size. So it's quite a tricky circuit by normal standards. But when you've got 30 cars tearing through the first couple of corners on lap 1, what's your outlook at Road Atlanta?
So I was fortunate enough to do the BMW 120 last weekend, which was at Road Atlanta. So I've already done quite a lot of practice and a race start there as well. So I feel pretty okay. To be honest, my outlook for these things is always just put the practice in, put the time in, one lap at a time, one corner at a time, and just try and be faster than I was yesterday every time. And when it gets to race day, I'll just do my best and we'll see what happens. But as far as objectivity goes, having already done quite a lot of practice, and then obviously some more for the SRW race and for Petit Le Mans, which I think is the same week. I can't feel too bad about it. It should be okay, I think.
Well, it's great to hear that you're carrying obviously the experience and confidence into the next round at Road Atlanta. But Suzuka, we've just been talking about obviously next round, but this round, a very physical circuit, quite a demanding circuit as well, and doesn't really give you much room to play with. You make a mistake and it'll throw it in your face. How did you find the challenging Japanese circuit this evening?
It was one of the best circuits in the world. I think there's very few people that dislike it. It's tough. I don't know if you caught it on stream, but I lost second place to Ryan when I locked up and made a mistake. It cost me about 5 or 6 seconds through the final chicane. So yeah, quite unforgiving. The turn 1-2 complex in particular, yeah, it's so easy to send the car around. And then yeah, to be honest, towards the end of the race with as soon as I established that Joop de Ligt wasn't going to catch me behind, because I kind of having flashbacks from Imola of Martin van Loozenhoek coming through the pack and then passing me like I wasn't there. And once I established that Joop didn't have enough laps to catch me up, it was basically I put the traction controller up and said, okay, I'll bring the car home. I was coasting through 130R the last few laps. Just trying to get it done, but yeah, it's definitely very tough, and I picked up a lot of incidents to go with my podium, so I have to be a bit careful in the next couple of races.
Well, I've got to say it was a brilliant job nonetheless, and like I said, a great work on your podium. While we've got you in the commentary box and before we let you go, is there anybody you'd like to thank or shout out?
Yeah, First of all, congrats to Ryan and Johnny, who were both far too quick for me today. Thoroughly deserved P1 and 2, so well done to them. As far as my thanks, it has to be my team, my new team at Ronin Simsport. Their academy setup's been very, very good to me. I've been able to learn from some really great people. A season and a half ago, I was bronze class, so if I can say so, I've come an awfully long way, and I owe quite a lot of that to the guys at Ronin, and I'm immensely grateful. So thank you to them. And
well, thank you very much for joining us in the commentary box. This Hasse sounds very, very busy in the background.
I'm sorry,
but we'll see you in 2 weeks' time at Road Atlanta, and best of luck in between now and then.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a good night.
You too.
Yeah, apologies for disturbing the interviews. The viewers didn't really hear it, as I had myself muted on that part, but not you, so I had to do a very, very quick run to do manly business at the small house. We call it that. Quick indeed, and I'm back, and we will have our second and last interviewee waiting to come in and talk to us in the booth. I give you myself having a talk to Ryan Parkins. And Ryan, welcome in the booth. Nice to have you along. Great race, top 10 finish, and a, dare I say, spicy incident on the last lap with Jordan McClone at the Casio Triangle. What was your view on what exactly happened there?
Hello. Top 3, top 10. You can round it up a little bit and go top 3. I think.
You're thinking of Carl Sharkey, Hasse.
Oh, yeah.
Did I say top 3?
Yeah, and he said top 10.
But didn't he top 10?
This is Ryan Parkins. He finished in second.
Oh shit. That's how it is when you have to run quickly to the bathroom.
Should we start again?
Yeah, Ryan, welcome to second place today. Brilliant race. It looked a faultless display on your part. Was that the feeling you had out there? Was it a perfect drive from you today?
I thought it was brilliant. I was really happy. I thought that I'd done really well in qualifying. Obviously, Johnny, like 9 seconds up the road at the end, I think, at the end, he done really, really well. But then to be within 3 attempts of him in qualifying, I was really, really happy with that. But I knew that in the race I wouldn't be able to stay with him. Tyre wear wasn't great, or I was really worried about it anyway. Yeah, it's just more time, seek time to the setup. But that was a really good race. Really enjoyed it. I had my best pit stop ever in this series. So I'm really happy with that. Good entry, good, It's the little things when you're coming second.
Well, indeed. And how do you feel the differences to the Porsche before this current build was implemented with the new aerodynamic model, the new tire model? Do you feel the Porsche is more competitive now than in the first half of the season?
I'm not sure really, because even when I was behind Sam Bentham for the first part of the race, I wasn't catching him in the slipstream. So I don't know if I've got too much wing but I feel the car's set up quite well. But yeah, I just wasn't catching him still. Maybe mid corner, braking mid corner, maybe a bit of exit, but on the straights, yeah, I wasn't catching. So, maybe not. But at the same time, in this series, I'm just really happy to be the first top Porsche. That's what I'm aiming for, really. Obviously, because the start of the season, BOP wasn't in our favour, but I'm driving for Porsche Sport, so Strasser Porsche Sport, so I can't change car, really, can I?
No, I don't think so either. But I drive for a team sponsored by or working with Porsche Sport as well. I'm a huge Porsche fan myself, so I completely understand you on that one. But speaking of BOP and competitiveness, what are your thoughts on the remainder of the season? The American leg over America, Road Atlanta and such. I think it's going to be fitting for the 911.
Yeah, I think it'd be quite good those ones. There's not too many straights, I think. I can't remember what tracks we're going to, but I think we'll be okay. I'll be alright. Aiming for a top 10. If the rest of the guys want to turn up, I'll be okay with that. I don't mind fighting for it, because obviously you're only as good as the competition around you. So yeah, really looking forward to it. I just want to go and finish highest Porsche. I can't really compete with the BMWs in this series. It's unfortunate, is what it is. It's a good change to the saying though in this round. To finish first, you got to finish. I think this time you got to turn up to finish.
Yeah, indeed. As Murray Walker once said, "To finish first you must finish," and that's an eternal truth in the world of motorsports, indeed. Ryan, thanks for coming in here and talking to us, and I do apologize my absolute confusion before stuff happened very quickly indeed. I'll let you know that. But anyways, before we let you off the hook here, is there anyone we want to give a shout out to, thanks to, or anything else while we've got you on the air?
Strauss Porsche Sport, all very helpful. Can't explain everything, but loads of Luke. There's Luke Holroyd, who does all the social and does crew chief thing during the race. There's Carl, there's Austin, everyone in the team, and my fiance now, Angelica Brasello, who's watching. She's one of the few watchers. So yeah, hopefully. Hello.
Congratulations, Ryan.
Thank you.
Wow, that's great to hear. That was Ryan Parkins, whom we hope to see on the podium as well 2 weeks from now, so we get the chance to talk to this lovely lad again. Thanks for joining us, Ryan, and enjoy your time. In the meanwhile, I'm gonna use this opportunity to say thank you all out there for tuning in with myself and Jack Werrell for this 7th round of the Simracersworld GT Pro Series, brought to you by Porsche Sport, and of course also co-sponsored, if you will, by Strasser, Dynamics and Abruzzi. And as I mentioned earlier, there'll be more Jack Werrell alongside Peter Mackay for the Evo series tomorrow, and more Suzuka as well. So you know what to expect. It's going to be great. I'm going to be in for our first oval broadcast here on SRW TV on Sunday alongside the Sunday Drivers MX-5. Oh, and I've completely forgotten about this. I've got one more thing to say. I've got one more announcement to make, that our Chaz, the Chaz, that I'm sure you're all very much well aware who Chaz Draycott is, he is going to be commentating on the official world feed from the actual 24 hours of Nürburgring this coming weekend. So I'd like you all to just applaud this and congratulate our friend, our colleague, our mentor, Chaz. And it's so great to see that the wizard that he is going places. And from me and Jack, I think we're also super stoked about it as well. It's huge news, and can't wait to see Chaz on kind of the biggest stage there is. I think that's huge.
Yeah, it really is, and massive well done to him. Just to echo what you've said, I've got to say the first person that really sort of mentored me when I started commentating 5 months ago or something like that was Chaz. He took me under his wing, and I've got to say it's amazing to see. And I sent him a message. I feel like a proud dad at this point. He's just he definitely deserves it, and way more. So it's great to see that it's going places. And if you're not aware, and if you don't follow him on social media, he has quit his job to go full time with commentary as well. So I'm not sure how he can get any better, but obviously he's got more time to put into commentary as well. So please do keep an eye out for that. And I've just got to say, well done, mate. If you watch this back, massive well done from me, Hasse, and obviously everybody else that's watching, and everybody at Simracersworld TV. You deserve it.
Yeah, it's incredible. So for tonight, I'm Hasse Rømer. I've been with Jack Werrell. If you've liked what you've seen, leave us a like. Do subscribe if you want to see more here on Simracersworld TV. Do join us tomorrow and on Sunday for more of that good stuff. And until then, take care, have fun, and bye-bye.
Somehow you can find a slightly better frame